Shalom guys, welcome back to another episode here at YASHAV Ministry with Casa de Israel. Yara. Like I always say, thank you for being here. Thank you for the support. Like, subscribe, share with any youth, with anybody that is willing to listen and share the word of Elohim, the word of God, and understand his structure and his order. So, with that being said, let's do a Torah blessing. Baruch Adonai Hameh Olam Ba'et. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu migol ha'amim venatan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah. Bless Adonai who is blessed. Bless Adonai who is blessed now and forever. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has chosen us from among the peoples and has given us the Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, who gives the Torah. Amen. So, this week's Torah portion, is Devarim. And we're starting a new book. So, let's get started. So, last week we ended the book of Bamidbar with Matot Ma'ezi. Right now we're entering the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy. Hebrew is understood to be Devarim, and the Greek translation will be Deuteronomy. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But today, I would really appreciate your attention. I'll have to make it quick. We have a lot to get to. So, that being said, let's get started. Like I said, this week's Torah portion is Devarim or Deuteronomy, right? It will be in Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1 to chapter 3, verse 22. The Haftarah portion or the portion of the prophets for this week is Isaiah chapter 1, verse 1 through 27. And the Brit Chadashah of the Renewed Covenant, the Renewed Testament, it'll be Acts chapter 7, verse 51 through chapter 8, verse 4. Okay? Now, Deuteronomy or Devarim. So, it's understood that it has two different names, right? Greek, Hebrew. The most popular name for this book in the Hebrew is Sefer Devarim, which is short for Sefer Ve'ele Ha'adevarim, which means the book of these are the words. There's also the name Mishneh Torah, which means the repetition of the Torah. Then we have Deuteronomy, which means a copy of these teachings, which is first appears in this book in Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 18. Okay? There's themes that we're going to see in this book. And we have to focus on these things because it is very important to understand the context of the book. We cannot interpret the book the way we want to. Like I always say, context is very important. So, one of the main themes that we're going to see is God, right? So, Elohim is going to reveal himself to his people. He's going to reveal himself to this generation that is about to enter the land. Okay? So, we see God as a caring parent. He demonstrates us that he is like a parent. He carries us, he guides us, and he is leading us into his promise. Right? He also demonstrates to us that he is a giver of just laws. And when we say laws, we usually get sidetracked by things that we don't want to do, the structure that we don't want to follow, and we are kind of rebellious. But understand something. Laws are more translated into Torah, which Torah is instructions, direction, the guidance of God, the order of God, which will direct you in your life if you want to live in God's order. He also demonstrate that he is with his people, that he's leading his people. He is in the front runner, in the front of the camp that is marching to this promised land that he has promised their fathers. And this is very rare because in the ancient Near East, most of the people, when they worship gods, they felt that they were slaves of that god, that their gods were basically spoiled brats, that they needed to be fed, they needed to be taken care of, and humanity was there for that God to be pampered. And whenever they got angry, they would punish the people, and they would decide to do these things randomly. And so the people lived in constant fear. They didn't know, and they couldn't communicate with the God clearly. But Elohim is demonstrating to his people that I am guiding you, I am leading you, and I'm giving you instructions. And the last and the fourth theme that we can see here is the covenant. So there's the covenant, the preamble, and this week and next week is going to focus on the preamble. And we will talk about this, but there is a covenant in this Torah portion, or in this book, that I spoke last year of the vassal and suzerain treaty. And so it's something that you will see in the Hittite and Assyrian documents. And so when you take those documents of covenant relationship with those nations, with their gods, the structure of that covenant, when you mirror it with the book of Deuteronomy, the similarities are very, very, very prominent. Okay? Now, we're also going to see the theme of the people. So God is putting the young generation, this next generation, to the test. He is going to give them what he expects from them. The response to him being a caring parent, a God that takes care of them. Also, they receive grace, right? God is leading them by grace. But they need to understand that it's not their actions and their glorification that is giving them the access to the blessings and the promises that they have inherited. Okay? Also, it brings the aspect of Israel and the nations and how Israel is supposed to represent God, so the nations can see that God is a just God and that the nation of Israel has the true God. Okay? So they have to live morally in a way that they can represent him. And then last but definitely not least, we see the land that was rejected in the book of Numbers, that we will learn why in this book. Okay? So, with that being said, let's keep going. Two important themes that we're going to focus on a little bit right now is Israel and the nation. Even though this book is addressing the Israelites, it's meant for all nations. And I will get to that as we go along. But the land is hard to understand right now why the land is so important to the people of Israel. Why is it important today and why is it important forever? We live in a society where things are very easy for us, right? You guys have Wi-Fi, you guys have iPhones, right? You guys have computers, laptops, Apple Watches. We have Uber Eats, DoorDash. We have Instacart. We have instant satisfaction, and we can go to the grocery store, buy what we need and what we want, and we can go home and not sweat. The people of Israel didn't have this, and the nations in the ancient Near East and in the Bible didn't have this. They were, like I said before, an agricultural system of living, and they depended on the land, and whatever land they wanted and whatever land they had to be able to produce so that they can sustain a life in the world of the ancient Near East, where there was deserts, where there was famine, where there could be droughts. So they depended on the land, they depended on the rain, they depended on the rivers, they depended on the cattle, they depended on all these things of fertile ground. The land and the location of the land was very important. Remember, narrative is very important. So in the book of Genesis, we see the story of creation. We see the fall of man, and we see the covenant with Abraham for the people of Israel and all the nations. Right? Through him, they will be blessed, and he will inherit the land, and his family will inherit the land. All right, Exodus represents the exit from Egypt and their gods and their oppression from Egypt, and how Elohim redeems them through the blood of the Lamb, and they are now in the desert and the wilderness. The book of Leviticus is a pause, like we have spoken before, where Elohim gives them the structure and order of his sanctuary, which mirrors the structure and the order of how the nation will carry out the way they live outside of that sanctuary, because what that sanctuary represents is what the whole camp should be represented, so that Elohim can, the same way that he dwells in the tabernacle, he's meant to dwell in the camp. In the book of Numbers, we saw how they were structured and how they were given a position so that they could start marching. But what stood out from the book of Numbers is the rebellion. The rebellious streak that the people of Israel have been preparing against Elohim. This book teaches us to slow down. So my students were telling me last week that I'm going too fast. So we have to slow down. We have to take it easy, because now we're going to see an important aspect of the Hebrew mindset and the ancient Near Eastern mind, because we have gone through the patriarchs, we have gone through creation, we have gone through the flood, we have gone through Egypt, we have gone through Joseph and his brothers and Israel, and we have gone through the desert, Leviticus, Mount Sinai. We have gone through a lot of stuff, and now we slow down in the book of Devarim and Deuteronomy, and we look back. We have to look back. Why? In the book, we find that there is a turning point from the patriarchs to the nation that is going to fulfill the promises to those patriarchs. Past to present to future. This book reminds us of the past so that we are conscious of the present, and that with those tools we are prepared for the future. Looking at the past gives you something certain so you can move forward. And what do I mean by that? That the Hebrew mindset, in the time that we live in, right, we are so fixated with the future. We're so focused on going to the future, going to the future, going to the future. And all the mistakes that we have made in our life, we don't fix or we don't learn from them. We just stumble and keep on walking without fixing those situations that might help us move forward. But in the time that we live in the world that we live in, the future is more important than the present or the past. The Hebrew mindset is not like that, especially in this Torah portion and in this book in general, right? And in just the whole Bible. I have explained this in other videos, but the Hebrew mindset is that you are constantly looking at the past because you can't see the future, but you can see what has happened and you can live according to what you have seen happen. So those actions that you lived give you the structure in where you know what's right and what's wrong. What are the mistakes that people have made so that you can adjust your life as you grow? That's why this book is so important, because this young generation is getting the message of, look what was done, don't do it. Be better, be obedient, focus. Okay? Let's keep reading. Now, this young generation is in the border of something new. The people are at the border and they're at the edge of the most important event in their life. It is the turning point of the purpose of their exit from Egypt and wanderings in the desert. Now, it's been 15 minutes. Take a second. Ivanian, Chito, you guys better be watching. Newbert, Elias. So, they are at the edge of the Jordan. Moses is at the top of the mountain and he is given a sermon. Sounds familiar, right? To the New Testament, but we're not talking about that. He's given a sermon and he's letting the people know about what has transpired and how they got to this point. We will read that the Torah portion says in the beginning that the travels of Israel were meant to be 11 days, but they turned into 40 years. And Moses is very clear in the opening of this book of why it took that long. But this young generation is at the edge. They're at the edge of something new. And it's an experience that you guys will live, right? And I'm speaking to the youth mainly because I feel this book identifies with you guys a lot. And I do my best to explain it. But life eventually, as you grow, puts you in situations where you will be at the edge and things will change. Whether it be graduation, whether it will be your wedding, whether it will be a test. Those moments in where you are afraid or you are excited or you're anxious because you have been thinking about this. Your parents have put you got to go to school, you got to finish, you got to graduate. And once you're in this moment, you realize that this is it. And so excitement, fear can kick in and you might lose your focus. So it's important for you to understand and be conscious of where you are and what you believe when you're in these moments. And this is what Moses is trying to fulfill by remembering to tell the people what has transpired. Let's keep reading. The biggest word in this book is remember. These are the words that Moses spoke across the Jordan. Ele Devarim asher daber Moshe el chal Yisrael be'ebe Yarden במדבר, בערבה, מול, זוף, בן, פרן, ובן, תיפל, ולבן, וחצרות, ודי, שכר. In English, these are the words which Moses spoke to Israel across the Jordan in the wilderness, in the Araba, opposite of Suf, between Param and Tofel, and Laban, and Chaserot, and the Sahab. It is 11 days journey from Horeb by the way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea in the 40th year of the first day of the 11th month. Moses spoke to the children of Israel according to all the Lord had commanded him to give to them, after he had defeated Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, who lived in Asharot and Edrei, across the Jordan in the land of Moab. Moses undertook to expound this law, saying, the Lord God spoke to us at Horeb, saying, You have stayed long enough at this mountain. Turn and set your journey, and go to the hill country of the Amorites, to all their neighbors in the Araba, in the hill country, and in the lowland, and in the Negev, and by the seacoast, the land of the Canaanites, and the Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river of Euphrates. See, I have placed the land before you. Go in and possess the land, which the Lord swore to give to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to them and their descendants after them. I spoke to you at that time, saying, I am not able to bear the burden of you alone. The Lord your God has multiplied you, and behold, you are this day like the stars of heaven in number. May the Lord, the God of your fathers, increase you 1,000-fold more than you are, and bless you, just as he has promised you. How can I alone bear the load of the burden of you and your tribes? Choose wise and discerning and experienced men from your tribes, and I will appoint them as your heads. You answered me and said, the thing which you have said to do is good. So I took the heads of your tribes, wise and experienced men, and appointed them heads over you, leaders of thousands and of hundreds, of fifties and of tens, and officers for your tribes. Then I charged you your judges at that time, saying, hear the cases between your fellow courtmen, and judge righteously between a man and his fellow countryman, or the alien who is with him. You shall not show partiality in judgment. You shall hear the small and the great alike. You shall not fear men, for the judgment is God's. The case that is too hard for you, you shall bring to me, and I will hear it. I commanded you at that time all the things that you should do. Then we set out from Horeb and went through that great and terrible wilderness, which you saw the way of the hill country of the Amorites, just as the Lord your God had commanded us. And we came to Kadesh Barnea, and I said to you, you have come to the hill country of the Amorites, which the Lord our God is about to give us. See, the Lord your God has placed the land before you. Go up, take possession as the Lord, the God of your fathers, has spoken to you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Then all of you approached me and said, let us send men before us, that they may search out the land for us, and bring back to us word of the way which we shall go up, and the cities which we shall enter. The thing pleased me, and I took 12 of your men, 1 man for each tribe. They turned and went up into the hill country, and came to the valley of Eshcol, and spied it out. Then they took some of the fruit of the land in their hands, and brought it down to us. And they brought us back a report and said, it is a good land which the Lord our God is about to give us. Yet you were not willing to go up, but rebelled against the command of the Lord your God. And you grumbled in your tent and said, because the Lord hates us, he has brought us out of the land of Egypt to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites, to destroy us. Where can we go up? Our brethren have made our hearts melt, saying, the people are bigger and taller than we. The cities are larger and fortified to heaven. And besides, we saw the sons of the Anakim there. Then I said to you, do not be shocked, nor fear them. The Lord your God, who goes before you, will himself fight on your behalf, just as he did for you in Egypt before your eyes, and in the wilderness, where you saw how the Lord your God carried you, just as a man carries his son, in all the way which you have walked until you come to this place. But for all this, you did not trust the Lord your God, who goes before you on your way, to seek out a place for you to encamp, in fire by night and a cloud by day, to show you the way in which you shall go. Then the Lord heard the sound of your words, and he was angry and took an oath, saying, not one of these men, this evil generation, shall see the good land which I swore to give to your fathers, except Caleb, the son of Jephunneh. He shall see it, and to him and to his sons I will give the land on which he has set his foot, because he has followed the Lord fully. The Lord was angry with me also in your account, saying, not even you shall enter. Joshua the son of Nun, who stands before you, he shall enter there. Encourage him, for he will cause Israel to inherit it. Moreover, your little ones, who you said will become a prey, and your sons, who this day have no knowledge of good or evil, shall enter there, and I will give it to them, and they shall possess it. But as for you, turn around and set out for the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. But as for you, then you said to me, we have sinned against the Lord. we will indeed go up and fight, just as the Lord your God commanded us. And every man of you gird on his weapons of war, and regard it as easy to go up into the hill country. And the Lord said to me, say to them, do not go up, nor fight, for I am not among you. Otherwise you will be defeated before your enemies. So I spoke to you, but you will not listen. Instead, you rebelled against the command of the Lord, and acted presumptuously, and went up into the hill country. The Amorites who lived in the hill country came out against you and chased you, as bees do, and crushed you from Seir to Hormah. Then you returned and wept before the Lord, but the Lord did not listen to your voice, nor give ear to you. So you remained in Kadesh many days, the days that you spent there. So, a lot of reading. Yes, guys. This video is longer than usual, but we had to read chapter 1 at least. So, Moses is speaking to this young generation and reminding them of their father's mistakes. And this sermon that he's given is understood to not only be for the past generation and the present generation in this Torah portion, but it's for many generations to come. For us that were listening to what I just read, this is for us to understand that the past. I told you when we started Bamidbar that we will see Israel's stumbles. And instead of judging them, we should pay attention to those mistakes and understand that they were humans, just like we are. That they lived in a desert where at night it can be negative degrees, and during the day it can be as high as 100 degrees, no water. But Elohim was there with a cloud during the day and with a pillar of fire by night. He was there leading them. He was there carrying them as a son, him as the father. Moses' sermon, chapter 2 and chapter 3, are continuing to remind us that our obedience and following God's will is more important than our desires. I hope that in this book, as we understand what Israel has transpired and what they have gone through, we reflect and understand that following God's will is more important than anything that we believe in and anything that we stand for. Elohim, God, protected these people no matter what. This younger generation have inherited this land from their father, from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This generation is about to enter the land, but before they do, they will listen to the words of God one more time, and they will be given covenant. Just like their parents did, they will listen, and we will listen with them, because what they hear, we hear. So please, read chapter 2, chapter 3, and please focus on obeying God with all your heart and with all your soul. Devarim, these words are for you, for me. Let's follow God's structure. Let's follow God's kingdom, because the king still reigns in the heavens. So, with that being said, it's been longer than usual. I hope you're still there. I hope you're still there. That being said, have a great week. Shavua Tov. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.